Hello, everyone, and welcome to Just Unsecure. Today, we'll be talking about the OWASP Top 10 2021 Draft Review. Before we go ahead, we just want to say thank you to all the subscribers and those actually watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll be back with you shortly. Welcome everyone once again. This is Just Unsecure. We're two information security and cybersecurity professionals. My name is Babs and my co-host is OO. And we're here today to talk to you about, yes, we said it, OWASP Top 10 2021 Peer Review Draft. As you're aware, OWASP as Top 10, I've never done a review of the top 10 vulnerabilities for applications, and they just did one in 2021. So that's 5 years wait to have a review of the top 10. So what we're going to do here in Just Unsecure is go through the entire draft and let you know what's changed, what's new, what's in, what's out, and also let you know how to mitigate some of this vulnerabilities that have been highlighted by the OWASP. So before I go ahead, OWASP is a body, a free body where everyone comes together to contribute to application security and different forms of security that help both information security professionals around the world. So here we go. Welcome.
Thank you everyone for joining.
So the top 10, we'll start with, the first one was the broken access control, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, right there on our screen, you'll be able to see what's different from 2017 to 2021. The first place now is now broken access control. Broken access control was actually fifth place. Previously, it's now number one. The OWASP have said they tested, out of all the applications, they tested 94% of the application at 34 CWEs, which means common weakness enumeration, mapped to broken access control. So that is why it's now been elevated as the main vulnerability when it comes to application.
So the second one is cryptographic failure, and that has moved from number 3 to number 2. So this is all for sensitive data exposure and as a root cause to some of the things we've seen in the recent environment. So this is a renewed focus on that failure. So bringing it up by one step.
Yep. And the next one, I think, is injection. As you can see, in 2017, injection was actually our number one. But now it's been, I won't say downgraded, but it's still relevant. It's now moved to number 3. And again, it's due to professionals and the tests going on within the application security survey done by the OWASP. So that has now been moved to number 3.
So insecure design is just showing up for the first time. This is a new category for 2021. And the focus is, of course, the risk of design flaws, as we've seen even in the last 1 or 2 years. So that means there's a need to refocus on threat modeling, secure design patterns, and some of that principles or even reference architecture for development.
And moving on, we move to secure misconfiguration. As you can see, that's moved one spot. Used to be 6th place in 2017, is now in 5th place. And I think the main difference here is because they actually included external entities as well to assess the way security configuration is being done. The focus now has moved to highly configurable softwares doing those configuration within the industry. OWASP has said 90% applications were tested that had misconfiguration in place. So a reason again why it's moved from 6th place to 5th position.
And in general, misconfiguration has been a plague in the industry. In fact, one of the highest cause of compromise has been misconfiguration. So we move to number 6, which is vulnerable and outdated components. So this was previously titled, because it's now it's changed, it was previously titled using components with known vulnerability. Yeah. So this is now moved up to from number 9 to number 6 now. So it's a known issue and it's a risk, that most of the things are not being patched, they're not being updated. So there's a lack in that. So default exploit is also a key factor. So I can recognize why this moved up.
Okay, I think for number 7, which is now referred to as identification and authentication failure, that's AKA used to be called broken authentication in 2017, sorry. And it fell from 2 to 7, I would say maybe duly because of we now have well-known standards and frameworks that people are adhering to. So the reason why you see, okay, it's still there, but because you have standards and frameworks that people have to follow, then obviously when they're doing more tests and everybody basically use the basic standards and frameworks to develop applications, that vulnerability has fallen down the road. So the reason why it's come down to 7th position.
I'm really delighted about that, because authentication and authorization was a very big problem before. And I think that is now being recognized in the standard development environment.
Yeah.
On the 8th is software and data integrity failures. So this is also a new category. So this is really key, especially when it comes to the CI/CD pipeline, without verifying the integrity of the images, source codes, and all of that. So I think this is key to comment, because now we have faster development, faster rollout, and all of that. So this is really good. So I'm happy about that.
Cool, and I think the next one, which used to be the last year, and it was known as insufficient logging and monitoring, has now moved one step ahead, which is called secure logging and monitoring failures. So again, it's not like if it's gone or is irrelevant, but it's saying that, look, we still need to ensure we're logging and we're monitoring, and some people fail to understand the need of ensuring secure logging and monitoring. So again, it's moved from last position to the 9th position in 2021 draft review.
Absolutely. Visibility, incident alerting, forensics is still relevant, much more relevant, and I can agree why that should always be top 10. The last but not the least on that is still server-side request forgery. So this was relatively very good, and it's still relevant in the industry at the moment. And then this should be able to help us to at least know how to treat or to mitigate forgery of requests on the environment. So this is OWASP top 10, not ours. This is OWASP top 10, exactly. 2021.
Draft review, because I think it will be formally announced, but this is a draft review currently going out. You should bear in mind that actually the 3 main new ones, which you can see on the screen, which is the insecure design, the software and data integrity failures, and the server-side request forgery. So those are the 3 main things that have come into the 2021. And I also think we should let people know that the 2021 actually brings more industry professionals into play. So there are more people giving their own opinions that are professionals and are working in the field, in the front line, helping to help the OWASP community as well to point out some of the things that are deemed more critical from an application security perspective.
I was happy when I got to discover that a lot of these were not a bunch of people just sitting down to make decision. It was actually only coming from a lot of data. In fact, eight out of 10 of them came out of the data that was received from the industry. About 500,000 involvement or data points was provided to arrive on this, and that's really brilliant. So it's not from a specific set of people. It was actually what is happening in the field, what is happening live, and that's really a step up. And looking at it, that these are representative people that are just voluntary. Is an organization that is voluntary. That is a lot to analyze and to deal with, and that's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's also good to let people know that some of them, these vulnerabilities are also linked to the CVSS 2 and 3. And again, what OWASP does is what we also ensure is map the CWE, which I stated earlier, the common weakness enumeration, and is mapped again to the CVSS scores 2 and 3 to be able to give you a total of how critical each of these vulnerabilities are. So there's been lots of detailed intake into how each of these vulnerabilities are ranked. So it's something I would say, again, great for all our viewers to be aware of. And like you truly said, lots of people have contributed to this, and we are happy that lots of people in the industry are actually, helping the industry to grow from a security perspective. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, you've said it all. But again, when we look at everything in the overall, we can say that the analysis is more also focusing on threat modeling and all of that based on the new ones that are just being introduced, the 3-1, insecure design, software, data integrity failure. So you can say that, again, is more focusing on proper threat modeling, risk assessment, and what have you on that. And then, that is not being done because there's need to actually churn on new products into the market, faster, modern development, CI/CD, containerized, blah, 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 and all of that. Yeah. Microservices. So attention is not being paid to that.
Now that you've gone towards that side, I think it's a good time to go through each of these vulnerabilities laid out by OWASP top 10, and maybe see what organizations or what people should do within their organizations to mitigate some of these vulnerabilities. I know many of our viewers out there are all professionals, and maybe they have some of the things they need to be aware of. So I would say kicking off with the broken access authentication. What would be for me, I would say looking at access control. So as we all know, the broken access control is to ensure that whatever role is given to someone is what they have access to. So if you want to mitigate that, it's having a strong RBAC, which is the role-based access control. Ensure if a user is an admin or a user is just a normal user cannot become an administrator, cannot have access to administrative roles. So it is ensuring that is tightly coupled with the user's roles and responsibilities. Any other thing for you?
For me, I'll say verification of access. That means whether you throw in a challenge for someone to verify the identity, and also when you're even doing the role-based, make sure it maps to the organization. Sometimes you just do the role-based access control, you say admin, poster. No, that's not it. What is the organization kind of role? So if you have that, this is an accountant, for instance, it's an accountant. If it's an analyst, this is an analyst, and so on. So I think that discussion should be made with the business as well, defining that role and ensuring that when people change role, and And Babs, you know this, right? When people change role, we just had new access to them. And it goes on and on. This should be reviewed on time. Yeah.
And people should actually take this because these had 34 CWAs, common weakness enumerations within the OWASP survey. So it's an area that it's very, very critical because you remember once you have a broken access control, you basically have people that are not supposed to have the rights to do what they are doing. And by that, they have the rights to do what they do. And hence, you're not able to distinguish between an admin, a user, or who needs to have access to what. So this is something you really need to look into. The second one, which was the cryptographic, what's it called again? Cryptographic failures. Again, this has to do with data in transit, data at rest, how you generate your keys, how you destroy your keys. Has to do with different elements of things to do with encryption from my own perspective. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. So when I looked at that initially, I was like, how can an organization prevent this? Because right now, encryption is not a nice to have anymore. So it becomes critical. Mm-hmm. But first thing you need to do is actually look at your data, which I think you have mentioned that. Make sure you do classification of your data. Then from there, know what to encrypt. Mm-hmm. And then don't store any sensitive data that you don't need. That is what comes to mind for me. If you don't need it, throw it away. Mm-hmm. Or at worst, tokenize it. All the standard also represent that to say, yeah, if you don't need this, you can talk about some other things. I don't know which one you have in mind. This is all around data.
Yeah, so for me, once you're able to know the data you have within your environment and you classify them, so like you've said, truly data classification allows you to know whether data in this particular DB is deemed critical to your organization. If that data is deemed critical to your organization, then you should be able to know where it is and what kind of security is being done within that environment. Are you encrypting the data when it's at rest? When it's in motion, are you encrypting it? Are you using TLS 1.2? And also look out, TLS 1.3 will soon be out, but TLS 1.2. Are you ensuring that whenever your users are doing remoting to your organization, are they using IPsec? Tunnel VPN to ensure that there's a secure way of the users connecting to your environment, as well as accessing the data. Again, like I mentioned as well, key management, ensuring that the key rotation is done regularly and is actually secured. Always ensure your private key is secure. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's you've mentioned, and I think it's this number two worth dwelling more because people just encrypt and probably they keep the key somewhere else.
Yeah, and go ahead, sorry.
And this get compromised.
So and these are 29 CWEs. So again, that is why it's made number two, from my perspective. Again, OWASP has done its own due diligence, so everyone should really take all the top 10 as critical.
Yeah. The third one is injection. Everybody knows that. So this is whether it's at SQL injection or through the web service injection or API injection. So one of the key things is to prevent injection by keeping the data separate from the query. So definitely, you need from the OS, you need to make sure that the OS command is completely separated from the data command kind of queries. So that is number one for me. The second thing is to limit the kind of things, because we've seen that a lot of exfiltration of data by ransomware was done through the application as well. So limit the kind of volume of data that can be exported or uploaded or retrieved. Sometimes this has been a lot of things. I don't know if you have any other one. Definitely.
I would say because most of the injection have to do with getting something or retrieving something from the database. I would have said maybe also look at ensuring you have a DAM in place, database firewall in place to ensure you are able to assess who is logging, who is trying to log in any SQL queries that should never be done towards the database is highlighted, is blocked as well as part of some of the mitigations I will put in place.
Fantastic. I love that because most times we don't do that, right? And then everybody's, once they've compromised the application, they are going towards the database straight on. Yeah, that's beautiful for me.
And the fourth one, which is insecure design. I think I like the fact that this is now getting attention. I think you said it earlier. Because of the way applications are developed now, it's more in an agile environment. People want products done quick and sent to the front line. So I think putting this as part of the top 5 does definitely make sense, because now you're able to ensure that the CI environment, CI and CDI environment, so software development environment, goes through the necessary security checks required to ensure that you do not have any insecure design. I would say things like threat modeling, using the STRIDE, for example.
Ensure you have trusted sources of library.
Yeah.
Because most times that doesn't happen. So those, if you, no matter what secure development lifecycle that you have, but you have something from a library that is not secure, you have a big challenge as well. So you have mentioned threat modeling.
I would have said we should ensure in a secure design, ensure you do both your static and dynamic testing. So static looks at the codes in detail, and dynamic kind of looks at the code when it's in the production environment, when runtime state. So that's the difference. So ensure you do both your static as well as your dynamic testing, which for you to be able to know more about your application in the environment and when it's not in the environment. That would be my own take.
Absolutely. And the last one for me is to actually just look at it and see how those tests are written. Because sometimes the QA comes or the testing comes and they just do something at a 1,000 view level, but it needs to go to what are the key things that the solution needs to present to protect against. And that is why you'll be able to get whether you are using the SaaS or the DaaS that today I've just mentioned a while ago. But sensitive data reduction, I think we should look at that as well. Because whether you like it or not, everything interaction is going towards data. Or what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you from that perspective. Everything data, because data is the new gold. So anything that gets data out of an application or unnecessary access is something that needs to be definitely looked into. I want us to move to the next one, which is misconfiguration. And I think everybody is kind of aware of what it's really all about. Is people doing applications and enabling features that are not supposed to be there, or misconfiguration, putting configurations that does one thing but actually does another thing. Sometimes you even have developers putting backdoors within applications because they normally want to go back to fix, and those applications, they think they're the only ones that are aware, but again, malicious people are aware of misconfiguration that allow them to get into application. If I were to consider this, I always say try and use configuration benchmarks, such as there's an open one which is known as the SysCat. So the Sys uses admin best practice for all vendors in admin applications. So it both application servers and different process. So you have the Sys, you have the CCM, and you have Stig. I think Stig is more for military.
For data.
Is it
Yeah.
data? Okay.
Yeah,
I thought
but
it was more.
it's a standard for the US military kind of.
Exactly. Because I used to read most of things that came out from the States. So I know it's definitely for US military. Things for handling just to ensure, no defaults. Simple things like making sure you don't use admin or any default. The number one thing is anytime you get a product, change the default username and password. That's you might be surprised, but some people still today leave the username and password admin 123. You'll be surprised, but it does happen still.
It does happen. Sanitation in that environment is not done. Sometimes you need to find something that can actually even map those tests to benchmarks as well. So even after you're done with your deployment, find something that can quickly test it and see like, yeah, there's nothing left on that. Remove every feature that you don't want to use. I think that is the number one rule in hardening. Remove every feature that is not necessary. If you don't need SSH, remove it. If you don't need this, remove it. Even if you don't need a particular security feature, remove it. That is what because as long as you don't configure them properly, you leave a surface of attack right there. And then again, of course, configuration changes management. You need to also look at that. And if there's a way you can automate it, why not?
Yeah.
Automation
is key. We like automation.
Because of human error anyways, because there's a lot of human error even in configuration in the last 1 or 2 years.
So
number 6.
I was going to say.
So number 6 is vulnerable and outdated component. This goes without saying. Yeah, it has low 3 CWEs, but you and I know what is happening in the field and why probably OWASP will have included it.
Yeah, there are lots of some people when they build applications and some libraries are left and some libraries are not updated, and those are the weakness to an application. Okay, some might say, okay, we are only doing this feature, we only need this library, but because you forget to update other libraries or you leave outdated libraries within your application, that is a gateway to the application or the application to your data environment. So,
but Babs, you know that even most people do not even know how many libraries they have in the environment. How can you probably update it?
Well, that's a good question, but that's why you have the configuration management database to be able to have a list of all the libraries within your application. And most of the time, if you have other tools that are able to tell you libraries that need updating, they can automatically say, okay, this library is out of date, you need to update it. Or you have scanning tools that scan your application and provide you with information to say this library has an update. You need to update your library. And there are reasons why some people use open source libraries, and there's some reason why libraries are updated, because they know there's a vulnerability in those libraries. So that is why you need to update it. So whenever you see the notification that you need to update libraries, I always tell people, take it seriously and update it. You might be taking precautionary measures to not be a target. So that's the whole plan.
As you also remember we had a lot of supply chain challenges in the year, in which it has to do with some libraries and those guys were even patched, but when the patch was released, someone did not even know that they are using the software or the library, and they didn't update as well. So again, bottom line, to address it, you have mentioned everything that is possible to do. Number 7 now, go ahead.
Well, that is identification and authentication failure. That had 22 CWEs, and like most people are aware, it's basically ensuring that everything that has to do with authentication, either from a session perspective or with credentials, is looked into. I personally, from a mitigation perspective, I tend to look at API management. Because most of the things when it comes to application has to do mostly with the API. So I would
Absolutely.
say looking at how your API session is managed between the application and users, as well as very key is ensuring that for everybody trying to use your application, you enforce MFA, that is multi-factor authentication. So that is my own take on mitigation. I don't know if you have any more you would like to add to that.
Yeah, you nailed it for me. I think that is critical. Part of the thing also is to know how many APIs you've got calling those services, because sometimes we have API sprawl in the environment. So API management, and if you can integrate session management, session security, API security with your API gateway, because most organizations are now using it, I think that will form a central place where you can actually also monitor security access to your API. And then you know what kind of data classification based on the other ones that have been mentioned. Then you also do like a cascaded kind of security around that has to bottom line look into how you do authentication or authorization. And of course, we've talked about role and as well. So that's becoming more critical.
In the last episode, we also talked about SOA. I can't remember.
Yes.
I can't remember, but I remember we talked about it from API access login to detect anomalies and automated responses. So basically, to know whether or not the API is functioning the way it's functioning and be able to raise an alarm saying, okay, someone is trying to use me the way I'm not supposed to be used, kind of a thing.
Exactly. And if you get that, it's automatic remediation is good, so that when something happens, it remediates it quickly. It's an anomaly, it quickly blocks it, do whatever it needs to do to it. And that is very critical, especially when it comes to this level of compromise as well. It's always very good.
The next one you want to take?
Number 8 now is software and data integrity failure. This is one of the new ones that are just coming on board. So one of these is, for me, I'll say zero trust. Zero trust, that means adding continuous checks on source codes and what have you, software supply chain tool, even those ones that OWASP provided, or especially when you call Cyclone DX and some of those tools by OWASP, to verify every component continuously. So verify it, whether it's coming from the trusted source. Use intelligence to improve the environment, at least to be able to mitigate integrity, because once you get a backdoor into your environment through the libraries that you create, so that is it. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. I think I don't have much to say about this. I think you pointed out everything needed. I'll move straight to number 9, which is the security logging and monitoring failures. As we are aware, in security, if you're not logging and you're not aware, then that's you provided the key to the kingdom, because you're not able to detect or respond to any attack. So mitigation here is ensure you're logging everything relevant to be able to create or know what is happening within your environment. So the whole point of logging is to ensure that if there is an attack and there needs to be an assessment, forensic audit, you are able from the logs to recreate the steps that the attacker used in gaining access. That's why we say log every relevant information. You're able to know what the logs that were you able to know what the attacker was trying to gain access to, if they gained access at all. Also ensure that the format in which you're getting your data is understandable by you. So some people get data and they don't understand the data they're getting into their safe. What I always say is, if you don't understand it, how do you expect a forensic expert that is going to come to you to understand the data? Because you're supposed to explain to him, do your own internal analysis first. And once an external person comes to say, okay, what data do we have? You're able to say, yes, at this time, this guy logged in here, had access to ABC. You're able to explain the forensic, and you're able to explain step by step of what an attacker tried to do, and while a forensic person can look at it in further detail into the data that the attacker had access.
Absolutely. To add to that, which is really critical, you mentioned something touching, which is the format. And sometimes you believe like one team can do everything. For example, one of the key ones that I know is database. You mentioned DAM the other time, right? DAM and DAP, because those are targeted towards database. The normal teams do not understand SQL query. So you might probably need to do more to say, guess what? I'm going to get something that understands this particular kind of format. And those you must standardize. You must know the tools and then being able to pipe them into a central place where they can now give you, maybe based on alerts and some policies, you're able to see everything holistically, how everything is connected. On top of that, you cannot make sense of everything, especially things that are outside of order. That means you probably need artificial intelligence environment.
Absolutely.
With a lot of enrichment from third party. For example, if something is 0 day, right? So if it's coming to your environment, probably your current engine do not understand it, but an AI or machine learning environment understand that, oh, this is actually abnormal, and can quickly flag it to you. And then because you have an enrichment somewhere else, they can also tell you what is happening out there, and then can quickly get you up to speed on mitigating risk into your environment. Yeah. Number 10.
Yes. Server-side request forgery. And this is the new one. It's new, right? Yeah, this is one of the new ones.
It has been recoined, but it's still there. So
I think before we look at even the mitigation, though, for some of our viewers, what is it about? I will be brief about it. This is when the server does not validate what the user submitted in terms of URL. So let's say you go to put www.amazon.com, but there's they send a request to the server and you put a slash database, and that is what it's trying to get into.
Yeah,
that is what the server is not supposed to respond, even though it's a valid syntax. As long as that syntax is not supposed to be responded to by the server tends to, if it's malicious and not configured properly, the server will respond with whatever is there. But normally you're just supposed to go to www.amazon.com and get your response from the server to go to the Amazon website. A malicious person will put a slash and other elements within the request. And if the server responds with a valid request, then that's a problem.
Yeah, we used to do it before. In a young age of the internet, you know that already we have a directory, just put slash that directory and then to give you everything, especially during the
non-disclosure agreement. I didn't do anything. No.
during the PHP, new PHP, then I used to do that because I already know some of those directory of those, because when you look at it as well, some of the URL requests are not even validated. So,
exactly.
So this, as you have to do this on a multiple level. One level is to do at network layer. So I recommend network layer. I also recommend, of course, that is sometimes you put WAF in front of some of the application, just to be able to do that as well. And this is caused basically because of complexity, because now even in cloud environment, you have a lot of things that we are not managing very well, and that grows as well. So deny by default. I will always say that. I'm not a fan of blacklist. I'm a fan of whitelist. Mm-hmm. Deny by default, then only allow what you want to allow. So that is, for me, that is it. Whitelisting is there. So I don't know if you see any other method.
I would say disable any HTTP redirections. Do not allow redirection from HTTP to something else. It's just a way of attackers providing a payload to redirect to where they want the server to send a response to. So things like that.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Any other one from you?
So again, don't use deny list. only use allow.
Because, that's definitely, and also ensure that you do some form of cleanup. I mean, sanitize and ensure that whatever the request is, this is what you're going to get. Do some form of sanitization within your own environment and be able to kind of maybe put some AI into it. Not sure if AI will work in this particular perspective, but be able to know what request is going to come from your server, whether or not, if it's a valid request, if it's not a valid request, know what your server is going to respond with. It's called sanitizing and knowing your own environment, even before the attacker tends to know. Remember, the attacker's got loads of payloads they're going to push at the server, and they only need a response that gives them information to be able to bring the server down or gain access beyond the server. So that's just my own take.
Yeah. Luckily enough, some of these are bundled into some of the WAF, the new WAF right now. They have a lot of fixed things. They can block by region. They can sanitize for you. They have most of them have PCI DSS built into them. Some of them have AI built into them right now. Some of them even can help you with API security. So explore those as well. Again, but you must know, first of all, your application properly. What many people do is just bring tools in front of it. But at the end of the day, they kept only doing minimal configuration because they don't even understand what they're trying to protect. So walk through all this stack, the top 10, and make sure you do diligent work around it. So for me, I believe that's it for me.
Yeah, we've gone through the OWASP top 10 with things that are new in the draft review. And we've gone through some of the mitigations that you should be taking when going through the new top 10 on the OWASP. I hope you all enjoyed it. Again, we'd like to thank everyone who subscribe, who send us emails and tell us to keep going. We will keep going. Let us know some of the feedback you have from us. And always, don't forget to subscribe. Email us at juteam@justunsecure.com. We're on different podcasts, so you can listen when driving, when taking coffee in the morning. But again, just let us know how we're doing and what you want to hear from us. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm going to throw a challenge to some of our subscribers.
Go ahead.
If you look at this top 10, how will it apply to your own organization? I want you to email us at juteam@justunsecure.com. Tell us how you're probably going to prioritize it. Maybe 10 is going to become number 1 for you and all of that. Definitely. Many organizations might be reprioritizing this, and this is based on your risk assessment. Let us know. We will love that.
Or you leave a comment down below in the video, or anywhere you want, juteam@justunsecure.com, or just put a comment down below. Thank you all very much, and it's bye for me, Babs.
All right, guys, take care. Catch you on our next episode. We will have fantastic things lined up.
Thank you all. Take care.
Have a great day. Bye.